Still remember the first time I saw the sun turn violent. It wasn't the gentle golden disk we draw in childhood. It was alive, roaring, pulsing like a heart made of fire. Through the telescope's filter, I saw a wound appear on its surface. A dark blotch surrounded by flame. A sunspot. Most people looked up that morning and felt warmth. I looked and felt a chill, because in those shifting magnetic storms, the sun was whispering a warning. One the world would ignore. This story isn't science fiction. It happened once before, and it nearly destroyed everything humanity had built. The year was 1859. The world ran on wires, not microchips. The telegraph was our internet, carrying messages across continents through thin copper veins. And then, one late summer morning, those veins caught fire. It began with light. A flash so bright that people in Europe thought dawn had broken early. The aurora danced not in the polar skies, but over Rome, Havana, even the Caribbean. Farmers stepped outside and saw curtains of green and crimson stretching from horizon to horizon. Telegraph operators in Boston and London wrote that the heavens are in flames. Then the sparks came. Telegraph lines crackled and burst into flame. Operators were thrown back from their stations as electric arcs jumped from the keys. Papers caught fire. Some systems kept working without power. Messages sent with no batteries attached, the Earth itself carrying the charge. It was the largest solar storm in human history, later named the Carrington Event, after the British astronomer Richard Carrington, who witnessed it unfold through his telescope. Carrington saw the flare before anyone else. He described it as a sudden brightening, a cloud of white light erupting from a dark spot on the sun. Within seconds, that light raced toward Earth at the speed of radiation, and the planet, unaware, stood defenseless. Carrington wrote in his journal, "The light was so intense, I felt the air itself vibrate. Half a world away, the magnetic needles of compasses spun wildly. Birds lost their flight paths. Telegraphs hummed with invisible electricity. Humanity had, for the first time, touched the wrath of the sun. The storm wrapped our planet in a wave of charged particles. The aurora borealis, normally a cold polar light, became a firestorm visible across the tropics. In Colorado, miners were awakened at 1 a.m., believing dawn had arrived. In the American Midwest, people read their newspapers under the night sky. The air itself glowed, but beneath the beauty, chaos spread. Telegraph operators reported electric shocks, machines sparking, lines melting. In New York, a telegraph office burst into flames, and still nobody understood what was happening. Priests called it a sign of the apocalypse. Newspapers described heavenly fire. The world stood at the edge of science and fear. When the storm faded 2 days later, the damage seemed local. No one could yet imagine what had truly happened. A solar flare of unimaginable power that had ripped through the magnetic shield protecting Earth. For decades, it became a forgotten curiosity of the Victorian Age. A strange light show in the sky, a few broken machines. Nothing more. But as time passed, and technology grew from telegraph lines to satellites, scientists began to realize something horrifying. I still remember reading NASA's quiet report from 2014. Buried beneath technical jargon and solar graphs, it said something chilling. On July 23, 2012, a coronal mass ejection of Carrington-class intensity narrowly missed Earth's orbit by 9 days. 9 days. That was the margin between civilization and silence. If Earth had been just a fraction ahead in its solar orbit, the flare would have slammed directly into our planet's magnetic field, triggering a storm equal to or greater than the one Carrington witnessed in 1859. And this time, we wouldn't have telegraphs sparking. We'd have power grids failing across continents. I imagine it sometimes, the world in darkness, screens going black, planes drifting silently in the sky. No GPS, no satellites, no internet. That flare missed us by less than a week. That's how close the sun came to trying again. A phrase that sounds gentle, almost harmless. But when the sun sneezes, our technology shatters. In simulations, the chain reaction begins in minutes. Satellites first, fried by high-energy particles. Then power transformers, burning out across North America and Europe, substations exploding, cities losing light. Within 24 hours, financial networks collapse. Hospitals lose backup systems. Air traffic control vanishes. The digital skeleton of civilization fractures beyond repair. And the silence would be the loudest thing humanity ever heard. NASA estimates that if a Carrington-level storm struck today, the global cost could exceed $2 trillion in the first month alone, and recovery might take a decade. 10 years to rebuild what one solar tantrum could destroy in minutes. In 2012, NASA released a statement that chilled even the calmest voices in science. A solar storm almost identical to Carrington's had erupted from the Sun in July 2012 and missed Earth by just 9 days. 9 days. Had Earth been slightly ahead in its orbit, the planet would have been hit by a blast strong enough to fry every satellite, black out continents, and destroy power grids globally for months. Maybe years. NASA's report ended with one sentence that echoed in my mind. Now, every morning, when I see the calm sunrise, I can't help but remember what it hides. A star capable of ending everything we know, without a single explosion on Earth. The sun doesn't hate us, but it doesn't care about us either. It's a nuclear monster, balanced on the edge of chaos, held together by its own gravity and chance. And someday it will flare again. Maybe tomorrow, maybe 100 years from now. But when it does, every satellite, every plane, every signal, every heartbeat tied to the digital world will go dark, and we'll look up once again into a sky burning. When I first began studying space weather, I used to think of the sun as distant, safe, eternal. Now I know better. The sun is our life and our greatest threat. If the Carrington event taught us anything, it's that our survival isn't guaranteed by strength, but by luck. Maybe that's the real story of humanity, that every heartbeat of civilization exists between two pulses of a star. And every dawn we see is a gamble won for one more day, because one day, the sun will try again, and we'll find out if history repeats itself, or if luck finally runs out. We're not defenseless. Not completely. Satellites like SOHO and Parker Solar Probe watch the sun's surface, mapping every flare, every eruption. Magnetic storm alerts flash on scientists' dashboards daily. A silent war fought with data. Governments are finally building solar-shielded transformers, deep space monitors, and backup communication systems. But deep down, every expert knows the truth. We can predict the sun's rage, we can't stop it. Our shields are paper compared to its fire. And yet, we still rely on its light every morning. Every beam that warms our skin comes from the same star that could erase us. That paradox is both humbling and horrifying. Sometimes, late at night, I look at the sun through old footage, the same patterns Carrington saw 160 years ago. The flares still dance, the fire still breathes, and I wonder, are we meant to survive this long, or have we just been lucky so far? Because the sun doesn't hate us. It doesn't even know we exist. It simply is. A cosmic engine, giver of life, keeper of time, and destroyer of worlds. Maybe that's the real story. Not that the sun tried to kill us, but that it reminds us how fragile we are. That every sunrise is a second chance. A silent truce between fire and flesh. And so, as the first light hits my window each morning, I whisper the same words to myself. We survived the day the sun tried to kill us. But one day, it might try again. Fade out. Eerie solar hum echoes into silence.